So, most of us, friends, tend to dress our prayers up. We make sure that they are shiny and new, deferential, respectful, as if we were sycophants to the Most High, and our prayers little missives that we must send him in order to soothe and upbuild his fragile ego, as if he were some cosmic dictator. We're afraid to be honest with God in prayer, to be candid when we approach the throne of grace about what ails us and how we feel about it. And yet that is precisely what our second lesson from the letter to the Hebrews enjoins us to do, to approach the throne of grace with boldness, not timidity. It is precisely what Job says he desires in our first lesson, to give God a piece of his mind, if only he can find him, which he can't. It's what's modeled by the psalmist, who complains forthrightly and without any hedging that God has forsaken him, and asks for an explanation. I don't have to tell you that an awful lot of ink has been spilt on what theologians call theodicy, which is basically the attempt to explain why, if God is the good creator of all that is, bad things happen and evil exists. Most of the approaches are, to my mind, deeply misguided, though. They're attempts really to get God off the hook. Attempts to get God off the hook for suffering in a way that I really only believe God himself can, not our arguments about him. This is one of the lessons, I think, of the story of Job. Now, Job, recall from Sunday school, Job, recall, is described in the first chapter as blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. He's a good guy. And life initially had treated him well in return. He was good to others and to God, and life was good to him. He had a good marriage, as far as we can tell. A whole gaggle of happy children who, once they had reached adulthood, I love this. It says they invited each other over for dinner all the time. It sounds like a nice family. And he also had a great deal of material wealth. The first chapter goes into excruciating detail about how many camels the man owned. The long and the short of it is, he had plenty of stuff. But then God withdraws his protection from Job, permitting Satan, so the story goes, to have his way with him. And life steamrolls Job. It runs him over. His kids get killed, he gets gravely ill, and he loses nearly all of his possessions. Proof that all the money in the world is finally no guarantee of safety and security, which is part, though certainly not all, of what Jesus is up to in the lesson from the gospel, which we just heard, though that's another sermon. When Job finally gets God's attention, God gives him a total non-answer, from which we will hear in our readings next Sunday, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?" And so on and so forth. The answer to that is, well, I wasn't anywhere when you laid the foundations of the earth. It's a kind of, I'm God and you aren't sort of answer. Not exactly sensitive on God's part, but perhaps true all the same. And it's on that answer that all our pitiful efforts to square suffering and evil with God's power and goodness shatter.